I'd like to introduce to you Justin Moderie. Justin is the state pavement engineer. And I can tell you from past academies, when it comes to pavement, it's really interesting. So I'm looking forward to Justin's presentation and to the information. So take it away, Justin.
Afternoon. I'm from Pavements, and we need more money too. I tell Bert how much I like ferries. I like riding the ferries. These bridges are boring. Put the money towards pavement. So anyhow, I wasn't going to talk too much about funding levels. The House Bill 2017, it kept us from going off a big cliff with funding, but it's a little bit lower than on average we've seen in the past, even with the House Bill. So we're doing our best we can to stretch those dollars, and having good process controls and project management during design is critical to the whole story too. So first of all, I'm happy to have the opportunity to be here and talk with you guys and share a few things about Pavements, a few key things that it's nice to just tell everybody at once. I got a little handwritten thank you note ahead of time. So I was looking forward to it. Once I got that, I kind of assumed maybe this is a hard crowd, so I don't know. So if I could have Brian and Paul in the back of the room just stand up. They came along with me. They weren't speaking today. So Brian is our pavement project delivery coordinator. He works with the consultants who do pavement design, and is also working with just different ways of interfacing and setting up project controls and trying to help us streamline the amount of paving and some of the processes that we go through. And then Paul, he's actually from our construction QA group, but in a previous life, he was a pavement design engineer, pavement design manager for Arizona DOT. So he's been helping us out a little bit too, so I brought him along so you could see his face. So as I go through my presentation, just ask questions, raise your hand while I talk. If you want to save it till the end, that's fine too, but I'm happy to be interrupted. So we've gone through a few past project boot camps. I believe Karen Strauss, who was our pavement design engineer at the time, told most of you here, I think, some of what we do. We have a pavement field crew that goes around and tests the pavement as part of the pavement design process. We need to get that out there early in front of the rest of the design so we kind of know the footprint and a little bit about the processes we go through. So I'm not going to revisit that. But I want to talk to you just a little bit more about some of maybe the more financial, the program management sides of what we do in Pavements. So it is just a little under 20 of us. We're centralized. And we have three main functions for ODOT. We have pavement management, which is on the asset management side of things. And it's also it's a specialty engineering field, really, to be able to see how best to stretch our dollars for where we do our projects. I think I have two different microphones listening to me. Sorry about the feedback. So what they do is every 2 years they collect pavement conditions, and then they work with a prioritization so that we're not just doing our worst pavements first, but we're trying to keep our overall pavement conditions up by keeping good pavements good, and then we're patching quite a few back highway pavements in some urban areas too, because we can't afford to pave them, so keeping the right balance. Pavement design, that's the people you folks deal with the most. Have a pavement designer work as part of the the project teams. And then we also have the pavement materials and quality, and for a few of you that are working with the consultants and managing the construction side of the contracts too. They're really important to all of ODOT because not only are they a technical expert about the asphalt paving specs, they're training inspectors, they're interfacing with industry, they're the point of contact for ODOT for the paving industry in different meetings and whatnot. So on the construction contracts, it's really important to keep those folks in the loop. Chris Duman is our pavement materials and quality engineer and has folks helping him. But if one contractor gets away with something paving later in the season and the others don't, it's a big problem statewide. So that's where he comes in. And then we have the word program management up here, which if I can push the right button, I can circle it. There we go. So program management you've probably had a few presentations talking about it, but what it means for me is it's the business side of the house, and it's a little bit hard to define, right? I just mentioned the 3 things that we do, but there's a whole business of saving taxpayer money the best we can with paving. I mean, if we were all part of a company, we'd be here to make money, but we're here in the business of saving money as much as we can for the sake of the taxpayers to stretch those paving dollars as far as we can, and that goes all the way from how we deliver projects to controls along the way to the design we do and making sure we don't have scope creep, that sort of thing too. So a few more details as we go through how we deliver projects. So scoping, it's really a tricky subject, as we all know, trying to get it right during scoping. And I was just back in Washington, D.C. with a few of my counterparts here last week, and it was interesting to talk to them about how they approach paving different jobs. A lot of them, they're really simple jobs are just kind of turned over to maintenance. Other ones run them through a rigorous design process. A wide array of how they program them and how they actually deliver them through design and construction. So the way we do it here at ODOT is we start out with a 150% list from pavement management. So that goes to the scoping teams. So whatever amount we think we can afford, we select 50% more. In those 150, there's a certain priority within those, but those are ones that you could consider fairly eligible as a good priority for ODOT to pave. And then we send a team of our folks out there, or I shouldn't say a team, it's individuals, but they go look at the pavement, they look at the construction history, they look at pavement management data, which we can see here is quantified all the distresses, the conditions, and look at our last pavement design report, and take their best guess at what the pavement design will be. And that's a little bit of point of confusion sometimes that when the project team started off, they said, well, we have a pavement design right here, but really it's the scoping estimate. It was just a guess, right? It's not really the final answer until we've gone out there with our field crew, done the exploration, done the design, so we actually have an answer. The problem is what happens if there's a surprise? You know, something buried under the pavement that we didn't really know about. So we also consider an advanced investigation. So now, on our pavement scoping estimate, up in the corner, we've got a checkbox. And if we really didn't feel very comfortable with our estimate, we thought there was a lot of risk associated with it, we'll flag it for an advanced investigation. So before the rest of the design team even kicks off, we want to have a pavement design using advanced investigation to get out in advance of the rest of the team, so that if it's a decision between a 1R or a 3R, that sort of thing, we've already made that distinction on the pavement side ahead of time, so you know what process to follow and who all you need to have on your team. So we will initiate that based on what we think. If the region has some sort of need to have an answer sooner, talk to us and we can see if we can get out there an advanced investigation. Okay, moving right along. So we have 1R, 3R type projects typically for pavement pres. One nuance is sometimes there's some fairly large modernization jobs that have a significant amount of paving on them. So a good example of that would be, let's say, the Medford bypass. It's already built. But if Region 3 was scoping that, you'd want to also come to pavements as part of that and get a pavement estimate for how thick that would be, the pavement type that you would have, so you'd be able to work that into the budget too, asphalt or concrete. We've had a few where it wasn't a pavement pres job, and then some roadway engineer had a pretty good guess at what the answer would be, but by the time you multiply it by the length of the project, there was an issue, or they assumed it would be asphalt and it turned out to be concrete, and their estimate wasn't right, and it gave us problems. So just a note to contact us on scoping for non-pres projects if there's a significant amount of paving. We anticipate there too. Okay, next step. After we've done our scoping estimate, it goes to the regions. They add in the leveraging, triggered work. You know, some guardrails need to be upgraded when we come through. It's a chance to pull the leverage programs in. And just encourage everyone to look at what you're getting from the different programs and try and put it together on the program management side. We're talking a little bit more. We're trying to be organized and do that to help a little bit between the programs, to combine projects a bit. I know Culverts is looking ahead, trying to get their projects right ahead of the paving jobs or on the same ones. And then it comes back from the regions with the revised scoping estimates that have the project cost. And then based on the dollar per lane mile and what it gets us condition-wise, then between the district managers and John Coplantz, our pavement management engineer, they whittle that down to the 100% list and get the best value for the money now that we have a fairly accurate cost of what that would cost. So there goes into the STIP, and now we're to design. Any questions yet? Yes?
Can you distinguish what the differences between 1R, 3R, and 4R?
Yes, I can. So starting from the top, 4R is, as I believe, if there's roadway people, they may correct me a little bit, that's the full standard, all new features on the facility. So that would be like probably a total reconstruction. We don't see too many of those. 3R stands for rehabilitation. I forget all the R's, but anyhow, that would be, on the pavement side, a multiple lift project, so 2 or more lifts of asphalt. So that's a fairly significant resetting of the infrastructure in that corridor. So then we tack on, guardrail upgrades, and I think we look at widening too and check the crash history. Not we, but ODOT does. And and there's more of the safety features go along with it. 1R is primarily a pave only, and we've done that to try and get as much funds into the paving for the jobs where it's either, primarily just single lift asphalt, thin lift, 1 inch thick, or our typical more 2 or 3 inch lifts. If it's just one lift, we're basically trying to just preserve the pavement. And with that, we don't want to reset the clock on all the other infrastructure and pay for that as we go through. We need to really focus on being able to stretch those dollars. And if you can keep a good pavement in good condition, you save money. And so this is all part of that same effort. Let's get in there with those cheap treatments and try and keep everything together without doing all the extra work. Okay, so design. Did I went too far here. No, there we go. Oh, I'm sorry. Got off on my slides. Okay. So we have program funding managers, talking about program management now. So as a state pavement engineer, I'm the funding manager for the IM, so all the interstate paving jobs. Also, there's some little maintenance jobs, major interstate maintenance. Maintenance deals more with that. Statewide chip seals, a few of you, especially on the east side, will deal with me on that. Also, anything that's House Bill 2017 preservation. I'm actually the funding manager on those too, and those are scattered around throughout the areas off the interstate, statewide. So we also have funding program managers for the region fix-it programs for preservation. So do all of you know, can I just get a show of hands for who knows in your region who's the region pres lead, who's the financial program manager? Okay, we have some out there. So region 1, Ted Miller, right? Everybody goes to him. He's the one that needs to sign off if there's a change on the amount of funding from Fix-It for a project. Region 2, Cole Mullis. Region 3, Darren Naval. Region 4, Pat Simiotti. And Region 5, Paul Woodworth. So we're part of a pavement committee, and so we compare notes, but we want to have similar process controls, whether I'm the financial manager, plan manager, or they are on a project. I realize the dynamics are a little different in a region, but we hope that you guys have a similar experience looking at funds. So the way I see my role is trying to keep, let's see, how do I say that? Again, picturing back to a company, we always have to think the boss that says, hey, wait, what are you doing with my money? Well, it's not my money, but I want to have that role to kind of question as the outsider. Why do we need this for a project if we have more money? Or if we have leftover funds at the end of a project? Want to get them back to Hope? So she can put that back into the pavement program. So as we look at this, for all the ones that I am the program manager for, my group will do the initial business cases saying this is the need of the project. In the regions, it'll be the region, whoever those district managers get to do it for them. And not the final business cases. We had a few people asking us to write the final business case. We can't do that in pavements because we don't know all the other needs that got added on to that project. But we do the initial business case on the paving jobs. Also, making sure that we don't have scope creep, that there aren't things adding to the budget from, how shall we say it, triggered things that really shouldn't be triggered. You know, are we really supposed to be doing thus and such on this project? You look back through the standards, no, we're not. And we'd say, sorry, we can't pay for that. So by signing the charter, that's how we verify, right? Funds used correctly, same with signing the charter. And I've had a few charters come around, or the CMRs, that don't say which program is funding which amount of the project. And I always kick them back and say, please fill in those amounts. And it's mostly on the CMRs where you had an original amount and then the budget changed. We need to make sure, am I the only program changing, or is Bridge changing a little bit too, that sort of thing. And same with change orders. So each of those CMRs that come in, I'm always asking what changed and why. So I like to see, well, what was the original bid tabs, or for the scoping estimate, what are they now, and why are they different if the price has gone up? And I think those are just good questions to ask ourselves. And one thing that I've noticed is whenever a PRES project comes through, you know, a town or through a corridor, it's kind of like taking my 3 little kids down the candy aisle at Walmart, right? You know, everybody thinks, oh, this is my opportunity here. Maybe we can get this done with the paving funds too. And some of it's right? It's in our guidance that we'll do that when we go through, but we're trying to keep a watchful eye just simply because we don't have enough money to go around and want to keep it right on the priorities. And then also, one little nuance, and it's getting worked into DES 01. I think who else is familiar with DES 01 about funding? Okay, that's a good read, if I can recommend it. So that's our guidance on how the programs should fund the projects and where, how do we say it, where the responsibilities lie, especially if it's a combined project. And so on the region fix-it jobs, so let's say it's a job where Ted Miller's the program financial manager, and if there's a change to the budget, if it's something that would have to go to OTC, you know, more than $500,000, then I should also be co-signing those because it's changing in a significant way where our paving funds are going. Okay. So into design, interactions, and timelines. So we have a new person being our pavement design coordinator, which is the person you call in our office when you need a pavement design, and that's Dustin Hawes now. We're happy to have him come over from Region 2. He was a geotech there, and that's a pretty easy jump over into pavements from geotech. I did it about 9 years ago, and I love it. So anyhow, call Dustin Hawes, when you need a pavement designer. So which projects need a pavement design? All projects with paving. Easy enough there. The only exception, I think, would be maybe a trail or a bike path, because there's a standard drawing for that. And then the roadway engineer would be the POR for the paving spec. But for the rest of them, yep, contact us. We'll, even if it's just a little one, we can just turn it around pretty quickly. Okay, and then contact us at project initiation. So there used to be a design schedule out that showed the pavement design due at project initiation. So we would get a call from somebody new saying, okay, can I have that pavement design, and who's going to be the pavement designer? Say, wait, time out, that's about a 5-month process there. First of all, it's winter right now, and we can't get our field crew out in the snow to go test your pavement. And then, you know, there's the engineering after that. So at project initiation, that's when pavement design gets involved. Our own internal deadline is to give you a draft pavement design 30 days prior to that plan review. And then also just a reminder about the 1R form. Once we've established that it's a single lift treatment, if that is indeed the case, and roadway has done their screening for safety elements, then both myself and the roadway manager from that region need to sign that 1R form, and then you guys give that to Christopher Henson. And then he keeps track of that for FHWA to make sure we're doing the right thing with their 1R program. So plan reviews, as normal, we're part of the team, right? So we put the specs into ProjectWise, again, 30 days prior to advanced plan review, and that's typically when we would also give our stamped pavement design. Is that correct, Brian? Did I say that right? Okay, he's keeping me on track here. So sometimes we'll give a stamped pavement design right up here, 30 days prior to DAP if it's a really simple project, but usually we want to get that draft out there. It establishes a footprint for the main line, and then if different things come up, we need to add a turn lane here, we need to widen there, we'll add those different features on and keep track of it and give that all to you in one package in the final pavement design. We used to stamp them quite soon in the process and then do 2, 3, 4 addendums, and it's a little hard to track. You know, project-wise, you have to be going through and making sure that you're reading the right one. So we're trying to avoid that and keep it a little simpler. And then we do the POR sheets as well for our specs. And then we're also the professional record and then technical resource during construction too. So there's been a little bit of confusion from time to time because the roadway engineer stamps the plans. And then a question will come up during construction for something that's on the pavement section, and somebody will contact the roadway engineer instead of us. But since the roadway engineer's taken what's in our pavement design and put it there, yeah, make sure you talk to us. Okay, professional responsibilities. So we have the pavement engineer of record, like we talked about. They're responsible for anything that's behind the details that have been drawn up by roadway. The roadway engineer keeps a stamped copy of our pavement design on file for their record. So who stamps a sheet with only pavement details? We have that sometimes on the concrete jobs. My question's come up a few times. And the answer is either one of us. So if it's only paving details without the dimensions that would typically be on a typical section, we can stamp it, or the roadway engineer can. So typically we work out between ourselves, but if you guys need to interject yourself, that's my take on that situation. Also, the bridge engineer of record. So most bridges have a approach panel. I mean, that's where we feel the bump as we come onto the bridges. Happy to say pavements are smoother than bridges too. Anyhow, that approach panel, the bridge approach panel, that belongs to the bridge engineer of record, and it goes onto their plans. Anything outside of that it belongs to pavement. And so we have to work together sometimes if there's a joint there that we have to work together on. So there's a distinction there. Also, the bridge deck, we pave across the bridge deck, so if there's any special treatments that they need to do with that pavement, that also falls to the bridge engineer, even though it's pavement. And then they can consult us as to what's the best type of pavement or if they have any issues, but they're ultimately responsible for what's on the bridge deck. And then the geotech engineer of record, if you follow through in the specs, usually a safe way to think about it is anything that's more than a foot deep belongs to the geotechs. So if we're putting an embankment in that's over a foot deep, they would be in charge of sorting out how to deal with all the soft soil. If we're just at grade, then it's our problem. Simple way. So kind of the magic 1 foot number. Alrighty, so a few things on schedule. One thing that we're working with, trying to work with Tamara and David on a bit, Brian's taking the lead on this, is we've noticed that we've kind of done it a disservice to our paving contractors. A couple years ago, they had the busiest year ever, and they were so excited. They thought this was going to continue with House Bill 2017. Well, we had ebbs and flows for how we got the work out of the door. And then this past year was one of the lightest ones we've ever had. And they're laying people, one company laid off 13 salaried employees, whereas a couple of years ago, they were hardly getting their sleep, right? So what we're trying to do is look ahead. We've already talked to all the regions management for the 21-24 STIP and tried to look at when the projects are planned. And right now, it looks like 2021 is a really busy year, according to the projections. So we're trying to see if we can shift a few things around to even out the paving workload, which would be really nice for our resident engineer offices too, since their workload reflects that. as well too. So bidding the project at the right time of year. How many of you seen that when to bid document that I think Tamara helped me send out here a couple months ago? When's the best time to bid a paving job? Okay, so maybe we can send that out again or get it into the guidance. So we don't want to be bidding paving jobs, let's say in May, where they have to go out, crush the rock in a quarry, submit it back to central lab, they have all these durability tests, then do a mixed design on it, wait for the mixed design to be approved and run all these different things, and then actually get out there and pave and do the work. It's a little bit easier if you're close to a commercial plant like Portland, Salem, Medford areas, Bend a little bit too. So we really want to be before March 15th for our paving work. And preferably not in August either, because nobody's at their desk. They're all out on pavers, then are running crews too. So we're really targeting about towards the end of October to March 15th, and there's a little more detail. So as you're looking at your projects and you get one assigned to you, if you can look ahead to when that end date is, and if it falls at the wrong time, talk to whomever you need to in your region, and start adjusting based on that end date of when it's going to bid. That would do everybody a huge favor. And I realize there's many factors, right? But at least if we all work towards that direction, it'll help a lot. And then also there's the end of season paving, September 30th. That's more on the construction end. They have to get done by that time so the stripes can get down and traffic kind of needs in the asphalt before the studded tires hit it. And okay, budget. Things can go wrong with budget, right? That's always uncomfortable. And there's some things just inherently difficult with asphalt paving. There's just the escalation of the asphalt itself tends to go up. Every now and then it dips down, and we add a few more paving jobs to the STIP. Fuel escalation for all the equipment out there. And then there's different bonuses to a smoothness bonus, a bonus on how well they've done with the quality of the mix and the placement. So it's not until the project's over that we really have that nailed down. So yeah, there are different budget challenges, but again, keeping the scope in order is really a good thing, and I ask for your guys' help with that too. So on the racetrack, first of all, I got David and Tamara asked me, can you say where, what parts of the racetrack you're involved with? So I started going through, I'd read this before, going through it in detail, and Pavement is involved in every single one because they wear out pretty quick, right? So we're either watching them fail or measuring how bad they are, or out there starting to work on them again, either in planning, design, or construction. So, and every time I take a trip too, I'm always looking at the pavement. I don't know where that is on this chart. My wife's tired of hearing about it. So anyhow, 3 main points though for project delivery. One is a kickoff, here right by the project development transition. The second is, so that's a kickoff. Make sure you get us on board. Sometimes, just side note, sometimes we'll reach out to the region ahead of time. We're trying to be ahead and anticipate. Sometimes we'll be calling you, say, hey, can you open the EA a little bit early for us because we'd like to get this one tested before winter sets in on the eastern side. So sometimes we'll bug you before you bug us. And then draft design here at the end towards the end of DAP, and then towards the end of advanced plans, the final pavement design and the plans or the POR sheets. And then also just a few little lessons learned. What can go wrong? Interesting picture here. I think this is I-5 between Salem and Portland. And they must have had some new sampling device to test the density. So good news, the pavement's done well ever since then. So that's good. So advanced investigation, I mentioned that we don't do that during scoping, but it'd be an advanced, right, probably several months before project kickoff. So if for whatever reason we'd planned on doing advanced investigation, we didn't, then your project starts with inherently more risk. Consulting out pavement designs, we've promised David that we're going to do that, and we have been. And we really rushed here recently to consult out more, and there were some we shouldn't have. We have to be a little bit careful with the selection of projects. And I think probably a few of you here in the room have seen a draft pavement design from a consultant where you just scratch your head and say, do we really need to rebuild the road here? So giving them projects where there's a high level of risk to the agency, or we're really trying to calculate, do we need to rebuild this road now or rebuild it the next time we pave it? Those are difficult ones for us to send to the consultant. So Brian is just now starting to look ahead to the 21, 24 STIP and sort out which ones really are suitable for the consultants to work on for us. Also, some people have retired in the consulting community, and there's not that many people out there that really are experts at it too. Okay, so we decide that prior to kickoff. So who decides whether it's consulted out or not? So for the large projects, so let's say, the I-205 widening, that falls to us to decide. Pres projects, it falls to us. All the rest of the projects, the region gets to decide. So you can, on those ones, if you want to, you can consult out the pavement design as part of the prime services package, so under the prime consultant. We suggest, though, that you talk to Brian on your projects. One thing, though, that we have been encouraging is for ones where it's just a little bit of paving on a project that already has a geotechnical engineer on board, a little bit of widening here or there, it works very well to just have them do the pavement design too. It's just a few dump truck loads of pavement. And most of the geotechs know enough to be able to do the pavement and just not have an extra person on the design team, so that works pretty well. Okay, one thing that does go wrong from time to time, and we don't really see it till it gets into construction that it's a problem, is that on some local agency federal aid projects, so maybe just some intersection improvement projects that have just a minor amount of paving. Make sure you send those pavement designs to Brian to review. Sometimes they have a type of asphalt that's not really available, or just multitude of weird things from somebody who's not too familiar with pavement design in those cases. And one thing that can go wrong is if our scoping estimate was just way different and we found a surprise when we went out there and cored. It happens sometimes, it makes us feel bad, but it doesn't happen that often actually. And then one that we're experiencing right now, construction prices go up, right? That's why we did the STIP reset. So that was what I had to share with you. I hope you're still awake. I see most people are. Thank you very much for that. So any questions for us? Or for me? Any questions for Brian? Okay. Well, thank you very much.
No, Jared.
Oh, here's a question here. Yeah.
Justin, thanks for that. That was great. So you mentioned back in DC talking to some of your peers. Are any of the other states doing anything substantially different? Maybe some different tiers of taking risks on some of the pavement designs, or is it primarily similar all across the U.S. to what we're doing?
Oh yeah. So on the interstate and on fairly major paving jobs, it seems to be fairly uniform. It does get a little blurred when you start to get into preservation and preventative maintenance. Some of them will just go pave, if the road's cracked and rutted, and they'll just go scrape off 2 inches and put 2 inches back. And there's a different array. It seems like the states that are a little more advanced, they're doing their work pretty similar to us. And we like to think for just $25,000 worth of engineering, from our group, or $30,000 worth of engineering, we can save several $100,000, either by a thinner design, if that's necessary, or having one that doesn't blow up so soon. So, that $25,000 isn't very much asphalt. So, and we realize here that there's, part of the program management, there's a slice of money that just comes right off the top and goes over to maintenance. Several slices. One goes to their low volume road program. So actually about half of the lane miles of our system here never see a STIP project for paving. They just hold it together with chip seals and some thin paving, and doesn't have enough traffic. It kind of works actually. So.
Other questions?
I'm getting pushback from resources in regards to getting our pavement design so late. And I'm wondering how firm that is, that 30 days before DAP. because I'm getting a lot of pushback from the other resources saying we can't do anything until we get our pavement design because that's holding up our project. So how firm is that 30-day prior to, and is there any flexibility?
Well, that's a good question. So it could be that that's a project that got advanced, or we had a turnover and missed it. That could be. Some projects have been put on hold, and then we were told to stop, and then all of a sudden we're off and running again, and we didn't hear about it too. So we're definitely endeavoring to do that 30 days. There's some, though, where it is a little bit more difficult project. Highway 217 widening is a great example where roadway and pavements, their design kind of has to go hand in hand. And there, if you see that on your project that pavements is waiting on roadway to come up with some dimensions so we can finish our pavement design, and then vice versa, we'll tell them, hey guys, sit down or talk to me, and I'll mentor them a little bit to try and get that moving. I've seen that happen a little bit. Well, they haven't given me their information yet, right? And well, that's not teamwork. Yeah, David?
So one decision that can greatly affect scope, schedule, budget of a paving project is concrete versus asphalt. Can you give us some insight as to what the factors are that pavements takes into consideration, whether to go with concrete or asphalt?
Yes. So the official way we look at it is through a life cycle cost analysis, where we say if we spend our money on concrete, which costs more and it lasts longer, how much does that save us versus if we put that money somewhere else as an investment. So we're trying to capture the time value of money, spending money now or spending money later. So the factors that go into that, though, are traffic is the main one. Concrete will only pencil out where there's numerous heavy trucks, and where the line is depends on where you are in the state and the subgrade conditions. Also, for a rehab project, the asphalt has to be really bad before we'd even consider converting it over to concrete. For new construction, concrete's a little more affordable because you use less base with it. We also look at corridor context. For example, we're building another couple lanes of extending the 4-lane section of US 97 near Sun River. It doesn't really make sense to have one little island of concrete and a whole river of asphalt out there. Another thing we look at is work zone safety. So this is really true in the Portland area. And believe it or not, nearly all the interstates in Portland are concrete. It's just they had studded tire rutting, and we covered them with a little bit of asphalt that we keep replacing. But what that's done for us is we're not really looking at any huge interstate reconstructions like they are up in Seattle, where the interstate's falling apart, because we have a special kind of concrete called continuously reinforced concrete, and we're able to overlay it with asphalt, which has worked out well. So if we were to do a new interstate widening or new interstate, that sort of thing, we would go with concrete in the Portland area because we don't have to be back every 12 years repaving it and putting workers out in harm's way right next to live traffic. We'd be able to just walk away for 30 years, probably come back with a diamond grind, which is a simple project 30 years from now to get rid of the studded tire ruts and let it go another 20, 30 years, and then be able to get into this cycle of just a couple inches of asphalt without ever having to, and keep our fingers crossed, but on the 100-year horizon, we're not reconstructing an interstate right in the middle of Portland. And that's been one of the main factors, especially as we've had some fatalities and work zones and that sort of thing. If you're going to get in there and do a major project, get in, do it right, and stay out. This is what we're trying to do.
Other questions? This is a great conversation. Other people want to get involved in this?
I could talk all day about pavement.
Okay, Justin, thank you so much. It was a
Yeah, thank
pleasure
you.
having you here.